Welcome back to Just Chattin'. And this is the series of videos we do just for our own entertainment. For all you Audie fans, he is asleep. He's just a few feet away from me on his second favorite chair, but first favorite blanket, because he's a cat and he has to be surrounded by the things he loves because, again, he's a cat. But he knows what we're doing, and I suppose if he wants to make an appearance, he will. So we're going to move away from Audie very quickly. I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview of what we're going to discuss this evening. The first thing I want to tell you is I came across a quote about Nutmeg from a British military officer, retired, that is probably the most savage and most accurate description I have ever heard of her. The truth is, I want to print this out and frame it and hang it on my wall. So that's coming up. We're also going to talk about Invictus, which is frankly in free fall. Nutmeg's most recent incarnation as a sex pot. People have suggested she might be starting an OnlyFans account. Who knew? And the sock puppet has come up with a new lie. Well, maybe this is an old lie that he's just resurfacing. But we are going to call that out, and I've brought the receipts. So, stick around. We're going to break for the intro. We will be right back. So, let's start with Nutmeg. She has recently released a video in which she is wandering around a kitchen that is probably not hers, because apparently she doesn't film in her own house because she is such a private person. And she opens up the cupboard and pulls a jar of jam off a shelf that is full of jam. So now I think we know where she is keeping all that product that isn't selling on the As Ever site. And wandering around, changing clothes over and over again. I think somebody said she was wearing at least 5 outfits, lying on a chair, looking like she is about to swoon. This is just out there. And the fact is, most people are saying this is looking like a trailer for an OnlyFans account. Yeah, maybe it is. I have to say it's beyond inappropriate. But the way I see it is this is just another instance of Nutmeg trying to reinvent herself as something else. Because clearly the video is not about the product, it's about Nutmeg herself. That's the product she's selling. This is Nutmeg selling Nutmeg. And it has been speculated that this is sort of an audition tape. She wants to do a reality show. Now, probably some of you will recall the last time we got together, I mentioned that there were rumors, and I wrote them off as rumors and gossip, that Nutmeg was talking about renewing her wedding vows on something that would eventually turn into a reality TV series. Whoa, you just can't make this stuff up. But in fact, that's getting traction now, and people are saying that this was like an audition tape. You know, won't somebody please make a show about me? I look at this as Nutmeg, who can't decide if she wants to be a royal, get herself introduced to empty rooms as Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, or if she wants to be a female founder and entrepreneur spouting off like this business babble using industry-specific terms that I'm sure she couldn't even define if she had to. Or is she, mom of 2? I don't know how many times I've heard Nutmeg say, well, as a mom, definitely she's using that to self-define. Interestingly enough, she rarely, if ever, says as a wife. It's always as a mom. And, of course, as ever, she's, founder, entrepreneur, stay-at-home mom making jam on the stove of a rented house. It's all so confusing. On top of that, we have feminist pioneer, and yet she is coming out with something that truly looks like it's the prelude to a sex tape. I mean, I'm sorry, but this is so freaking inappropriate, especially for a woman who is on the wrong side of 40. Now, I'm not saying a royal can't be sexy. I've seen William. We all have. So yeah, a royal can be sexy. It's not an inherent contradiction. But I would say that a feminist marketing herself as a sex pot, yeah, you've got an inherent contradiction there. You know, a female founder and entrepreneur marketing herself as a sex pot, again, another contradiction. A mother, well, not necessarily a contradiction, but that's the sort of thing that's going to keep your alleged children in therapy for the rest of their lives. I think it is just Nutmeg throwing more spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. I do find it entertaining, though. So let's move away from Nutmeg for the moment, and we will come back to her. And let's talk about the sock puppet. So let's start with the one I mentioned earlier, Harry's Big Lie. Harry wrote an op-ed piece for a publication in which he was decrying the rise of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. And in this piece, he mentioned that he had made mistakes in the past, and he took responsibility for it and learns and grows, and he's no longer that person. But here's the problem I have, so I'm going to put a pin in it right there. Harry never took responsibility for wearing a Nazi uniform. The article that I cited, and of course, as always, the articles are in the video notes. The article that I cited stated that he had taken responsibility for this in Spare. And that is a lie. I don't necessarily blame the author of the article because, let's face it, Spare was 473 pages of mind-numbing, self-serving horse manure. And I don't blame anybody for not reading it. I, however, did. I read every last one of those 473 pages, so I knew exactly where to go to find this. Now, let me give you this quote. This is an example of Harry taking responsibility for what he did when he wore a Nazi uniform to a party.
I went up and down the rows, sifting through the racks, seeing nothing I liked. With time running out, I narrowed my options to two: a British pilot's uniform and a sand-coloured Nazi uniform with a swastika armband and a flat cap. I phoned Willie and Kate, asked what they thought. Nazi uniform, they said. I rented it plus a silly moustache and went back to the house. I tried it all on. They both howled. Worse than Willie's leotard outfit. Way more ridiculous.
Now, does that sound like taking responsibility to you? Because you know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like blaming William and Catherine for his decision. He did not take responsibility. He shifted the blame to the Prince and Princess of Wales. Period. There's no other read on this. And obviously, I gave you Harry's words in writing and his voice reading them. So yeah, it is a lie. Whatever they are saying, no, he did not take responsibility. He is still not taking responsibility. He wants to sweep everything under the rug, blame everybody else, and just move forward like it never happened. And when we start looking at Islamophobia, that's when we start getting into that very dicey arena of things Harry has said. Now, most of these videos have been scrubbed from the internet, but I promise you, I heard them. I looked them up years ago, and I heard them myself. I would never replay them because you can't. It's not okay to do that. But Harry redefined a word for me. I grew up in New England, as many of you know, and in New England, there is a word for a liquor store, meaning a packaged goods store. That word is P-A-C-K-Y, packy. It's commonly used in New England, probably in other parts of the country too, to refer to a liquor store, to differentiate it from like a bar or a nightclub, where you might also be able to get an unopened bottle of alcohol, consume it on the premises, or take it home at your discretion. Package store, you buy it there, take it out, consume it elsewhere. We had a lot of blue laws in New England, so alcohol was very precisely regulated. That's the only explanation I have. Harry took what I would consider a liquor store descriptor and used that pretty widely. In addition to videos that have been circulated on the internet, we also have this from Lady Colin Campbell's book, Harry and Meghan, where she documented it. And we know this was simply part of his working vocabulary. And as I say, he wasn't talking about liquor stores. He said other things that I'm not going to even get into. There are a lot of ways to insult people of Middle Eastern heritage, and I'm pretty sure Harry knows them all. I'm pretty sure most of them are in his working vocabulary, or at least have been at times past. I do not recall him ever apologizing for that, because that was simply not okay. I do not recall him ever apologizing for the remark that was attributed to him by a friend made when he was dating Chelsea Davy, and he said, well, she's African, but she's white. As if it wouldn't be possible for him to be dating a black African. The man has issues in this arena. And I'm sorry, but marrying a racially mixed woman does not absolve you of that responsibility, and it doesn't suddenly make you the voice of racial equality and tolerance. I found that whole thing repulsive, and I think Harry should be ashamed of himself. But I did want to share with you the absolute proof of at least one part of that, which is his contention that he had taken responsibility for his mistakes. He did not. I do not believe he is ever going to. Now, next up, and this is sort of a Harry-related topic, is Invictus is apparently in freefall. The last time we got together, I told you that Boeing, which is a major sponsor, has pulled out. They're done. They've moved on. Maloney Poole, who is vice chairperson of the Invictus Games in the UK, has resigned, and this is very, very recent. This is all happening at once. And the Australian government has pulled government funding from Invictus Australia. Now, this is not part of some sort of government move to pull back funding for veterans services, because while they were taking $9 million away from Invictus, and that's $9 million they would have donated over 3 years, they are donating, or allocating is probably a better word. They're a government. They don't donate, they allocate. They are allocating something like $770 million to veterans services. So no, this was about Invictus. This was not about Australia deciding perhaps they can't afford to support veterans. They've simply decided they can support veterans, but they're finding better ways to do it. So while we are talking about Invictus, one of the articles in the video notes that I had looked up to research this, to get some of these figures, happened to mention that at one point, almost a year ago, August 2025, that Invictus soldiers were threatening to pull out of the game. So I thought I would look up that article. And that's where I found this incredible quote from Edward Fortescue. And I'm just going to read you the quote. I'll keep it on the screen, and so you can have your choice. Watch it, read it, whatever. So here you go. This week, August 17, 2025, a former major in the British Army and Intelligence Corps, Edward Fortescue, wrote a scathing post on X decrying both Harry and his wife, Meghan. In the post, Fortescue wrote, "The wounded veterans of Invictus are done, utterly and irrevocably done, with Harry and that fame-hungry parasite he married. They've seen war. They've faced death. They've dragged their broken bodies through fire and blood, and now they are expected to play supporting roles in the grotesque theater of two narcissists desperate for applause." Fortescue then took direct aim at the Duchess of Sussex, saying, "Meghan Markle is not a humanitarian. She is a scavenger, circling the sacred with cameras in tow, draped in designer grief and counterfeit empathy. She turns every solemn tribute into a photo opportunity, every scar into a set piece. The woman wouldn't know sacrifice if it bled out in front of her. And as for Harry, he had once earned our respect, but he sold it for a docuseries and a podcast that even Spotify couldn't stomach." Wow. Now, this was a former British Army officer just sounding off about Nutmeg and Harry, mostly about Nutmeg, but I have to tell you, as a piece of rhetoric, just what he wrote, it's gorgeous. That is a gorgeous piece of rhetoric. I have half a mind to just print it out. I could teach classes from that one piece alone. The fact is, beautifully written, totally spot on, absolutely conveys the contempt and disgust that veterans have for Nutmeg and the sock puppet and their never-ending exploitation of other people's injuries, other people's pain, other people's suffering, other people's triumph over that suffering. Well done, Mr. Fortescue. So I did want to share that with you because, as I said before, I think I'm going to print it out and frame it. It's really priceless. So let's close up with, Harry seems to be making a whole bunch of crazy demands that have to be met before he's willing to bring his charming wife and his putative children over to the UK. Now, I'm pretty sure nobody actually wants to see Nutmeg over to the UK. So, I mean, it's like, basically he's threatening people with a party. You know, if you don't do this, my wife won't come. And I bet they're all saying, yippee. And the fact is, it's also involving the putative children. You know my thoughts on that. I don't think those putative children are ever going to show up anywhere that they can be photographed, because I think once that happens, the jig will be up. He needs Nutmeg to be treated with respect, and she cannot be made to be the bad guy in any of this. And of course, Nutmeg has her whole list of demands, you know, rooms shut off in the hotel, floors, bulletproof glass, 24/7 security, 24/7 drivers. I've gone over this on a previous video. It was pretty much outrageous, especially for an organization that is already getting in trouble for what people are perceiving as inappropriate spending of charitable dollars. And I got to wonder how Harry thinks that the British government can control how the average Brit on the street treats Nutmeg. She has to be treated with respect. I guess that means nobody gets to throw tomatoes at her. Oh well. Look, the fact is, the wish list is unattainable. This has probably been done for a reason, because Nutmeg does not want to go back to the UK. And like I said, I don't think they can afford to bring the children back to the UK because, like I said, the jig will be up. So that is what I have for you. We are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. Thank you for being with us. I hope to see you next time. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.